The Pale Door, a novel in whispers and shadow. Part 1. A Knock Beneath the Floorboards. They told Isobel Fenwright never to return to the estate, in letters passed down from long-dead relatives. Her mother, her aunt, her grandmother. There was always the same warning. If the house calls, do not answer. But houses do not call. Not unless something inside them remembers you. She returned on a Thursday. The sky had a tear in it. That's how it looked anyway. A long silver gash through the clouds, bleeding light onto the jagged hills of Dartmoor. The Fenwright estate sat like a wound stitched into the land, all ash-grey stone and ivy-choked towers, windows like blind eyes, silent, resentful, awake. Isobel had not seen the house since she was 7. That was the year her father vanished. Vanished. Not died. They never found his body. Only his cane floating in the stagnant garden pond, and a single black feather nailed to the front door. She did not cry. Not then. Not until the house stopped speaking to her. Because it had spoken, once. She remembered that much. Part 2. The House Remembers. When she unlocked the main door, its iron key long rusted to the point of snapping, it did not creak. The silence that welcomed her was not empty, it was expectant. The great hall was cloaked in dust, cobwebs laced like funeral veils across the balustrade. Portraits watched her from walls that seemed to lean in. Her ancestors, grim-jawed and sunken-eyed, as if the painter had glimpsed their deaths before they lived them. She lit a candle from the kitchen. There was no electricity, and began to walk the halls. The candle flickered, not with wind but with breath. That's how it felt. Like something exhaled as she passed, like something recognized her scent. On the 3rd floor, she found the room that had once been hers. The door was ajar. Inside, untouched, a child's bed, too small now. A wooden wardrobe with scratched initials on the side, IF, the same mobile hanging from the ceiling, still turning. And on the desk, covered in dust, a note. Fresh, cram shock, written in her own handwriting, though she had never penned it. Do not open the pale door, no matter how politely it knocks. She turned, and from below, far beneath the floorboards, there came a sound. Tap, tap, tap. Part 3. The Pale Door. It was not a metaphor. On the 4th night, after the clocks began ticking backward and the walls whispered in languages that had no consonants, Isobel found it. A door, pale as bone, set into the stone floor of the cellar. It had not been there before. No hinges, no seams, just smooth, unnatural material. Porcelain, ivory, something older than trees. It knocked again, and when it did, her vision blurred. Her father's voice echoed in her mind, not words, but a shape, a weight. She pressed her hand to the door. It was warm. Open it, something purred behind her. She turned, there was no one. But her shadow had changed shape. It was taller, and it smiled. Part 4. The 7th Reflection. Isobel did not sleep that night. Sleep was no longer something the house allowed. Each time her eyelids sank, she saw, not dreams, but mirrors, dozens of them, each one showing her standing in a room that wasn't hers, wearing a gown she didn't own, staring at a version of herself whose eyes moved slightly too slow. She wandered the halls by candlelight. Her steps echoed not just ahead of her but behind, like something followed her movements with a half-second delay. When she passed the old study, the door creaked open by itself. Inside, dust motes like snow, paper-covered floors, books torn open as if dissected. And in the corner, a mirror. Cracked, ancient, rimmed with symbols scratched into the glass. It showed her reflection, but in the mirror she was not holding a candle. She was holding a feather, jummy, black, heavy, familiar. The same kind that had been nailed to the door the night her father vanished. Part 5. The black feather. She tried to leave. At dawn she packed her things in shaking hands, breathing in gasps as the air thickened with a scent like burnt wood and wet moss. But the door would not open. She turned the knob. No sound, no give. The windows were blacked out from within, not by curtain, but by something like charcoal frost, the kind of residue grief leaves behind. Trapped, and worse. Remembering. She stood in the grand dining room, where no meal had been served in half a century, staring at the long, empty table. Her fingers brushed one of the chairs. It screamed. Not with sound. With memory. A scene burst through her mind. A dinner, candles flickering, her mother's hand clutching a wineglass, her father staring at the fireplace, and a voice, her own young, small, trembling. There's someone behind the wall. Then darkness. Then fire. Part 6. The thing behind the wall. It had never left. Her father had not vanished. He had been taken. The house, Isobel realized, was not haunted by ghosts. It was haunted by promises. Promises whispered through generations, sealed with ritual and sealed again with silence. The Fenwright bloodline was not noble. It was bound to the door in the cellar, the pale door, which fed not on souls but on remembrance, and now it wanted hers. On the 5th night, the whispering began in earnest. At first, a hum beneath the floorboards, then words in the dark, then names scratched into her window glass. Her name, over and over. Topic: Isobel, Isobel. She screamed. No one answered. Only the knocking returned, softer this time, almost polite. Part 7. What lies beneath? Part 7. At 3:13 a.m., the house shifted. The walls curled inward. Wallpaper peeled back to reveal rot that pulsed. The mirrors turned inward, showing not reflections but interiors, her own lungs, her heartbeat, the inside of her mind. And the pale door opened. Not with a creak or blast, but like the parting of lips before a lullaby. A black staircase led downward, impossibly long, spiraling into a lightless abyss. At its base, a hum, ancient, rhythmic, like a clock that measured not time but truth. Isobel descended. Each step was a year forgotten, each breath a secret resurfaced. And at the bottom she saw her father. Or what remained. He did not speak, but his eyes begged her to turn back. And just beyond him, behind a veil of bone-white cloth, something moved, something waiting. Part 8. The Whisper Contract. The entity behind the veil had no form. It was shape and shadow, feather and flame. It did not ask, it did not beg, it offered. And I will give you what you cannot forget. Isobel understood. The house had never wanted her pain. It wanted her admission. The truth, that she had locked the nursery that night, that she had heard her father's scream and turned away, that she had chosen not to remember. Until now. She reached into her coat pocket. The black feather was there. Still warm.